Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Monday, April 1st. This is Gina Palma. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen precipitation target mainly the northern two-thirds of the Great Basin, and the precipitation that has moved across Nevada and some of the higher terrain of Utah and in the lower elevations has been well above normal. Further north up into Idaho and Wyoming, and in the far south along the Arizona Strip into southern Nevada, precipitation has been well below normal. Looking at new snowfall over the last 72 hours, we have had some new snowfall over the last few days in the higher terrain of Utah up into Wyoming and a little bit over in northeast Nevada. Looking at our snow depth, you can see that image on the right. All of our higher terrain still has snow on it with the exception of the far south. The snowpack, looking at the current snowpack for the time of year, we are seeing snowpack still well above normal, above 150% of normal across Nevada, the Sierra, and into Utah, and just above normal or closer to normal up across Idaho and Wyoming. Looking at the satellite loop from this morning, we have high pressure across the Great Basin, which will be quickly pushed eastward over the next couple of days as a stronger trough of low pressure off the west coast moves eastward. This will allow for increasing winds, decreasing temperatures, and increasing precipitation through the middle part of this week with this first storm across the Great Basin, with additional storms targeted for later this week and over the weekend. Now looking at the weather pattern for later this afternoon, that trough still remains offshore but is moving eastward. We will see clouds covering the Great Basin, which is already occurring this morning, and we will see showers move in later today over parts of the Sierra into western Nevada and Idaho. Ventilation index will remain fairly good in most areas as winds will generally be moderate with this first system today before they increase tomorrow. The only exception might be over central Idaho where much lighter winds will occur, therefore poor dispersion will continue far in the far north. Looking at our transport winds today, again, generally light to moderate winds across the Great Basin, with the exception of very light winds in the north. And then mixing heights will remain relatively high or moderate to high in all areas, with the exception of the Sierra into far western Nevada, which will see decreasing mixing heights as we go through this afternoon. As we move into Tuesday, this trough moves into the western side of the Great Basin. This will allow for winds to increase over the southern half of the area and precipitation to spread across the northern two-thirds of the region. Therefore, dispersion will decrease in the north and be very good over southern areas. You can see the transport winds in the image on the left, how the winds will be increasing significantly on Tuesday over the Sierra into western Nevada, but also over southern Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and the southern half of Utah. These winds will increase to gusts above 45 or 50 miles per hour. Mixing heights will be very high in the south and decreasing in the north. As we move into Wednesday, this first system moves into the Rockies, and we have another trough of low pressure that will be approaching, but this may be kind of a break in weather briefly on Wednesday across the Great Basin. Still fairly decent mixing heights and dispersion, especially over eastern Utah with northwest winds, and up over northwest Nevada and western Idaho as this next system approaches. Looking at the transport winds, again, they will remain breezy over the higher terrain of Utah into eastern Utah as that first system exits, and across parts of Idaho, and much lighter across Nevada. Mixing heights remaining generally moderate to high over the southern half of the area and lower up across Idaho into Wyoming. Looking at the forecast clearing index for Utah, you can see today we will see fairly low to moderate clearing indices across Utah, but that will obviously change on Tuesday as the winds increase in many areas, and then also on Wednesday, clearing indices will remain high over southern and eastern Utah as winds remain stronger in those regions as the first system exits. Overall precipitation is shown for the next 3 days on this image. You can see really most areas of the Great Basin will see at least some precipitation, with the exception of maybe southern Nevada and parts of the Arizona Strip, and also over southern and eastern Utah will certainly not get as much precipitation as areas further west. This will mainly be seen as low elevation rain and higher elevation snowfall. Going into Thursday, we have another system moving into the Great Basin, so again another round of clouds and showers and some cooler weather. And although these systems will be bringing cooler temperatures as they move through, temperatures will only drop a few degrees below normal during this time and otherwise remain near to just above normal. Dispersion will remain good on Thursday as the system moves through, bringing more breezy winds, especially to southern and eastern areas. On Friday, this next system exits, but we do have a stronger area of low pressure with more of a stream of precipitation coming off the ocean, so we'll see more of an atmospheric river event potentially later this week into this weekend, especially over the western side of the Great Basin. So we will see those winds increase along with heavier amounts of precipitation, especially in the higher terrain of the Sierra. Dispersion will remain relatively good in all areas on Friday, and again on Saturday as this system now moves across the Great Basin, pushing some precipitation again to the eastern side of the area. By Sunday, we still keep this westerly flow off the Pacific, so we will keep some wet weather and clouds generally over the northern portion of the Great Basin later in the weekend. You can see the precipitation for days 4 and 5, which takes us from Thursday through only early Saturday morning. And again, you can see that heavier precipitation moving into northern California and the Sierra, and certainly lighter as you move further east across northern Nevada and Idaho. The 8 to 14 day outlook, taking us into the second week of April, shows near to below normal temperatures across the Great Basin and still a large area of above normal precipitation across most of the west and even extending further east across much of the central and eastern portion of the United States. This concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Wednesday for the latest updates.